The SEC is eating each other alive, and we're here to talk about it at Sassy Stuff. I'm Emma.
I'm Blythe, and welcome to week 8. How are we feeling today?
A lot of crazy things happened. I don't know at the end of November how the SEC is gonna be. LSU and A&M are top of the league, which nobody expected. And number 5, Georgia, just upset number 1, Texas. Texas, the team that everyone says is the most complete team on offense and defense, and they couldn't get it done. Lost by 15, 30-15. They had such a slow start. They struggled the entire time. Quinn Ewers was sacked 7 times. This was just not the Texas that we expected. No matter how much mojo McConaughey was given on the sidelines, it just was not happening for the Longhorns.
No, this was their worst loss at home by number 1 team since 1982. Insane. Georgia's defense controlled this game from the opening snap, and it gave the offense opportunities to create points. We have Carson Beck. He threw 3 interceptions, 2 of which in the first quarter, but responded with 175 yards to get the win.
And with those 2 interceptions, Texas couldn't capitalize. They couldn't score any points, not even a field goal from those turnovers, which was detrimental to their game.
It is. That's what I was going to say. I was saying that the most surprising part of this whole game, I think, was Texas' highly rated offensive line just failed to hang with the Dogs this Saturday.
And there were so many mistakes throughout this game, but one came from the officials. And then the Texas fans bullied them into
Trash.
turning over. They had a pass interference call. I didn't think it was pass interference. I get mad when poor pass interference calls are called on my team,
See?
but that play is not reviewable. That's what we always say. You can't review that play. That really cannot be overturned. And then the Texas fans threw their beer cans onto the field and their water bottles and everything and said, overturn this play now. And they did. I'm like, why are you getting a pass in the SEC? You get a bad call, you deal with it. But I agree with it, but you deal with it. I
You
was kind
do.
of pissed off about that.
It was. It was a trash party. It's like this
I was
looks
like,
like
what
some
is
other
going on?
yeah, this looks like some other places I've been to. Won't slam anybody under the bus, but a couple SEC teams that I've been to, their games and stadiums, I've actually been on the field dancing at this said team and had water bottles thrown at us, had beer bottles thrown at us. Insane. I still think it's crazy that a lot of these schools and programs even sell alcohol in the games. My team at Clemson, they don't sell alcohol in the games. I don't think. Well, maybe we're only one of the few of the ACC teams that actually does not still, because I've been to Louisville and some other places where they do. But that always, makes the game a little bit more interesting when you have alcohol involved.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, I think it's a new thing for a lot of SEC teams. I know Bama just got it a couple years ago. But yeah, I'm like, these are college students. They're gonna get a little rowdy, a little hectic, but that is something crazy. I'm like, top tier SEC fan bases, we don't do that. We
No.
don't do that kind of stuff. But you know what? It worked. And now you're showing every other fan base if you throw all your beer cans on the field, you're gonna get that call overturned. Granted, it was a horrible call. It was a horrible call, but it worked. And I was like, what is going on here? But looking back at the actual game, Ewers surprisingly didn't get anything done. He was just so rattled the entire game. He had to be benched at one point. We had to put Manning on, and I'm like, Manning's not going to get anything done. He needs to be Peyton Manning at this point. This guy's a rookie. I don't know what you were expecting. That was a little surprising to
Mhm.
me that you would bench Ewers. Ewers has been in these big games. He's been in these big moments. He's been able to persevere and push through. Maybe after the game, I understood what it was because after Ewers came off and was able to settle down after getting sacked and not completing any of his passes, it really settled him a
Mhm.
little bit to where in the second half he was able to put points on the board, be a little bit more efficient, passing the ball, moving the ball, protecting the ball. So I get it, but also I don't know, it was kind of weird to me because I was like, Manning, this is baptism by fire
Yeah.
almost. You're putting them out against Georgia in this huge game, this huge moment
Mhm.
where you have to come back and win this game. I don't know. Again, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. They still lost, but it was a little weird to me that you're not putting all of your faith in
Your guy.
Quinn Ewers, yeah, who's been in these big moments. He was in the semifinals last year, almost won that game, almost went to the national championship. So that was a little weird for
It
me.
was questionable. It was questionable, I will say. Um, Especially at the moment in time when he was put in, maybe second half if, your number one isn't getting it done and there's not a spark, I could maybe see it just to see a different look from somebody else. But to put him in when they did kind of just made you feel like, okay, do you not believe in your number one guy? This kind of feels like you're giving up on him a little bit. But like we talked about in previous episodes, this was the true test for Texas thus far for their schedule. This was going to be a more harder matchup for them to realize, kind of where they're at. And to me, they were a little starstruck. This was a tough matchup, and you saw how they performed. So it kind of makes you wonder going forward, you know, when we get into that playoff conversation, when we get a little bit deeper into the season, how are they going to match up with all of these other playoff caliber teams?
Exactly. And you look at Texas's season before any games have been played, and you see that they have to play at Michigan
Mhm.
at the Big House. They had to play OU in the Red River rivalry. We're looking at these games and we're saying, okay, these are going to be tough challenges for Texas. And they far surpass our expectations in both of those games. But then as the season progresses, you see that Michigan is not the same Michigan that they were last year. They
Yeah.
lost to Washington a little bit later in the season, and you're like, okay, well, I guess that wasn't as hard of a win for Texas. OU has lost the majority of their starters on offense. So then you're like, okay, well, their offense really isn't that hard. And then they go into this Georgia game, and everyone's picking them because they're the most complete team offensively and defensively. And I'm like, but have they actually played anybody? That was what I was wondering the entire time. And playing Georgia, a true blue blood SEC team who has been one of the kings of the SEC for the past few years now, more than a few years, several years now. You kind of see where they're lacking. It kind of shook them in a way, and they had the home field advantage. And when you have the home field advantage, that's huge. And they
Huge.
couldn't capitalize on anything Georgia was giving them. And then Georgia's defense, they forced 4 turnovers, 3 fumbles, 1 interception. They never let Ewers or Manning find a rhythm. They had standout players, Jalen Walker, Mikael Williams. They had five sacks combined, 2 forced fumbles, and a recovery. I mean, their defense was on fire, and they did not let this Texas offense, which is their crowning glory, have anything and do anything with ease like we're so used to seeing. So looking ahead for Texas, they do face Vanderbilt next. Diego Pavia is the king of Vanderbilt football right now. He'll go down in history for that team, beating Alabama. So we're going to see if Vandy gives Texas the same troubles that they gave to Alabama, that they gave to Kentucky. So Texas really needs to get right here to get back on track. I think they're going to be fine in the long run. I don't think the rest of their season is unwinnable by any means. They could still be in that SEC championship game. I think they're still going to the playoffs, but this really did expose things that are wrong with Texas that we didn't see until the third weekend in October. And with Georgia, they have a bye week. They're going to be wanting to build off this massive win. They will have to go to Ole Miss. They have to play Tennessee. So they do have some tough games up ahead. So we're going to see what happens with them as well. Both of these teams are still in playoff contention. Both of these teams could still make it to the SEC championship. We might have a rematch in the SEC championship. So these teams overall are doing well, but this was an exciting game for sure.
Well, next up we have Bama and Tennessee. This makes Coach Kalen DeBoer 0-2 in the state of Tennessee.
That's very true. He is. In preparation for this game, they blasted Rocky Top all over their facilities to show how loud it can be in Tennessee. it didn't help Bama on their first drive. Bama did not get, I don't know, 1 or 2 yards into this game at all. They fumbled. They could not hear. They got false starts all over. This was a loud game. The officials couldn't even hear themselves. It was crazy in there. And it's the SEC atmosphere that we know and we love, and it messes with your teams. But look, it's the passion there from the Vols, and the fans were definitely a helping factor for the Vols to secure a victory 24-17 over Alabama.
Alabama committed 15 penalties. Never seen a team this undisciplined. Well, an Alabama team this undisciplined. They included a personal foul on receiver Kendrick Law that turned a late 4th and 7 into a 4th and 22.
My problem with that one was the Tennessee players seemed like he was obviously taunting him. You don't know what he was
Yeah,
saying. I thought it should have been a penalty on both of them,
me
offset.
too.
But you, again, the officials make their decision. You have to live with it. You should never have let yourself get in that situation. So I did have a slight problem with that one. But at the end of the day, why'd you let it get that far?
Exactly. But I think they both threw a little punch. Like he went in for it first, but then after the fact, there was a little bit of a, I don't know if it was like a full punch motion, but there was definitely some debacle there for sure on both sides.
But at the end of the day, the officials made their decision. You have to live with it. It should never have gotten this far. Those 15 penalties you were talking about equated to 115 yards. By halftime, Alabama only led 7-0. Do you know how many times Tennessee turned the ball over in that first half? 3 takeaways in the first half, and they couldn't score on a single one of those drives, a single point. This was not an entertaining game on either side, in my opinion. Both teams looked bad. They never found their rhythm until kind of in the second half. But if I'm going to blame anyone, I'm blaming Jalen Milrow. I don't know. He didn't have the passion to win. It seemed he seemed very nonchalant. He was missing easy passes. He was not utilizing his legs. He was not utilizing his running backs. They could not get anything done. And I looked to Jalen Milrow. I'm like, you're the leader here. You should be making these plays, and he's not.
And as you're looking on the sideline, I remember telling my boyfriend this mid game. I don't know if this is just maybe Milrow's personality or his demeanor. I don't really know, but it was interesting to see him on the sidelines when they were down and there was no umph about him. He just kind of sat there, kind of, blank stare. I kind of felt like maybe he should be, obviously he's the leader of the team, being on the sidelines, like hyping up the team, keeping them positive, keeping their head in the right space to finish the game and win. And it was strange to me not seeing that from a quarterback who is that guy and that leader of your team. I thought that was really interesting, and I was trying to just think about different games and different instances with different people, and I don't think I've ever really seen that before. It just kind of feels like this Alabama team this year is not one team. It definitely feels like there is a disconnect from the coaches down to the players, down to just teammates. It just doesn't seem like they're a solid core group right now.
Sorry, my background fell down. But Ryan Williams is 100% a wonder kid, and he can make those big plays. But every single defense that we have faced since he's shown us what he can do has been on him. You
Mhm.
have more receivers than just Ryan Williams. You have Caleb Odom, who is absolutely phenomenal for your team, and you did not target him once. He actually retweeted somebody saying that. I don't agree with retweeting. You keep your issues internally, you keep them in
Yes.
your team, you don't put your baggage out there. But it's true. You have to target other people. And then also his passes just did not connect. And like you said, he had no fire on the sidelines. I didn't feel like he wanted to win the game. I know he wanted to win the game, but it just didn't feel that way. It, I don't know. It left a lot to be desired from him. And whereas with Texas, I was a little like, why are we taking Quinn Ewers out? Quinn Ewers is your guy. I get he's a little shaken right now, but I feel like he can settle. This game, I don't know. not during the game, but after the game, I kind of was like, why didn't we try out Ty Simpson? Like, why didn't we put him in and give him a chance to see what he could do against Tennessee? I think Ty Simpson overall has a better arm, at least in the intermediate passing game. Um, he's not as mobile on his legs, but Miller wasn't even using his legs during that game. So maybe switching up your QBs would have benefited this
Yeah.
team in this game. And I mean, again, I'm going to ride or die with my QB until the end of the game. But afterwards, I was like, well, maybe we should have tried something new because nothing is working right now. And I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback by any means, but he has always been stronger on his legs. And it seemed like he was relying on his athleticism
Yeah.
instead of his other team members to get the job done. And it's not a one man job. You have a whole team behind you, you have a whole coaching staff behind you. It just was not working.
Mhm.
And Iamaliava was missing several deep passes. He kept your defense getting them off the field to give this offense opportunities to score, and they were unable to. Now, I will say at the start of the game, Alabama did choose to receive the ball.
Mhm.
I actually love that. My
Mhm.
dad and I, when we're watching football, say it every week. Why would you not want to receive the ball? I get the benefit of getting it first at
Yeah.
halftime, but when you receive the ball, you are guaranteed at least the same amount, if not one more possession
Yeah.
of that ball during the game.
Yeah.
That is huge. And
Huge.
I get you can do adjustments and everything like that. But if you can stop them coming into halftime, you are so far ahead. You're setting
Yep.
yourself up for success. So I loved that call, especially with how weak Alabama's defense has been. They were the shining star this week.
They
They
were.
were great. I thought they did a fantastic job. So moving forward, Alabama does face Missouri next week. So we have to see if they're going to clean up these penalties, if they can connect those passes, if they can avoid beating themselves again. It feels like they're playing two teams, the opposing team and themselves, the whole time. It's just, I don't know. It's not working for them right now. I don't think it's Kalen DeBoer. You have to be a little naive to think that you're going to have a huge personnel change, lose 26 players to the transfer portal and to the NFL, and think you're going to win the national championship.
Mhm.
Now, I'm not saying that couldn't happen.
Mhm.
I was born a Washington Commanders fan. We have done nothing since the day I was born. We have had a new owner, new coaching staff, and a new rookie quarterback. We are top of the NFC East. We are contending for the playoffs right now. And once you're in the playoffs, it's just a week to week thing to make it to the Super Bowl. Who would have thought that? All this personnel change, and we're like, well, let's just go out there and see what happens. We're playing for 2, 3 years from now. No, they're doing so much better than expected. Why don't we reframe our minds and be like, no, Bama is doing
Mhm.
much better than should have been
Should have
expected.
been. Mhm.
It's a little, I don't know. I think it was a little presumptuous for Bama fans. I'm calling myself out too. I think I'm going to win the national championship every single year. It's just not going to happen. You have all this personnel change.
Mhm.
And you know what? They could win out. They could win out in the playoffs. They could win the national championship. They still have an opportunity.
Yep.
It's a very slim margin right now.
Yep. But it's tough when you're used to being that top tier program. I mean, even, when Clemson played in all of those playoff games, it's like after not getting to that playoff level, 8 wins isn't good enough. 10
No.
wins isn't good enough. So there's that fine line that you kind of have to dance around when you are one of those programs that's used to playing in those big games. And you don't want to just go to a regular bowl game. You want to be competing on the biggest stage under the big lights for a playoff or a national championship. And like Clemson's motto says, best is the standard. Best is the standard for Alabama. Best is the standard for a lot of these top programs. And when you're not at that level like you're used to, it is tough being satisfied. But winning is hard. Winning is hard, especially in this conference, especially in this new era that we're in with NIL and transfer portal and everything that we've got going on in college football right now. So we really should sit back and appreciate wins that we do have, and even winning 10 games, because that is hard to do. But when you're used to that, it is tricky to kind of get used to.
Absolutely. And I always thought Alabama was going to be 10-2 this year. However, I thought that 10-2 was going to be coming from a Georgia, a Tennessee, or an LSU. And I was like, they just have to win one of those games and they're going to be good to go. Vanderbilt, however, was the outlier. And
Yeah.
that's what kind of makes their season teeter-tottering on the edge right now
Mhm.
because they have to beat
Yeah.
Missouri. They have to beat
You got to get
LSU.
out.
They have to beat Auburn. And it's a rivalry game. Anything can
Yeah.
happen. Just like in this one, Tennessee didn't play great, but they won.
Mhm.
It's a
Yeah,
rivalry game. I think the home field advantage really helped them here.
it did. Mhm.
They have to win. And this win for Tennessee really helps their playoff chances. They still have a lot of hard games ahead. I know they are playing Georgia. They have to play Vanderbilt too.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh,
but they
yeah.
are they have an easier path now
Yeah.
than Alabama does.
Mhm.
Now, for a little behind the scenes action for the show, I ended up creating the thumbnail for today's video on Saturday around noon while I was watching those early games. In the corner on the little tape, I wrote, Bama bounces back. On the
Love it.
other side, I had a longhorn with a crown on it to
Oh,
say
my
we're the kings of the SEC. So, if I
new
learned
background change.
if I learned anything, procrastination is key. Don't work ahead, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure parents won't be happy about me saying that, but it's true. Neither one of my early designs came true, and I was really upset about it. So
Now
we're
you
gonna
guys are making her go back to the editing
exactly, and it's your fault,
room.
Alabama and
Your
Texas.
fault,
Now I
Alan.
gotta fix it. Thanks
You
a
did
lot.
not
I was rooting for you.
the assignment.
Oh my gosh.
Well, next up we have Missouri and Auburn. Kind of what we expected, kind of not. Missouri quarterback Brady Cook saved this team's season after exiting the game in the first quarter, only to return late in the third to spark this comeback.
Dude literally went to the hospital and got an MRI and came back and said, "We're gonna put our
He's back
Superman
out
suits
there.
on now and go." No, at the start, it just seemed like neither team wanted to win. It seemed like neither team wanted to be there. I don't know if they were awake. It was very, very slow. It was kind of hard to watch.
It
I
was.
wasn't entertained by any means. Our Auburn's defense did hold Missouri to field goals early, but the offense definitely couldn't capitalize. They marched 63 yards just to miss a 30-yard field goal. Classic Auburn.
Really, I mean, they are still seeking their first SEC win. I mean, it is crucial that they bounce back this week when they travel to Kentucky. I mean, they have to get a win. They desperately need this.
Absolutely. And Missouri's defense held strong, forcing a game winning fumble. Auburn's hopes, poof, gone like their last Hail Mary. I mean, they're just not here
No.
this season. And I know a lot of changes has happened. I know the quarterbacks haven't been as strong as we thought they were going to be. So they are kind of playing for next year. It's like, let's try things out, let's see what works. They just can't finish a game no matter what. It's whether it's turnovers, penalties, poor play calling. It's just not working in their favor. And I really did think they were going to pull this one out, especially when Brady Cook left. But the second he came back, he rallied his team and he said, let's go.
Let's go.
Let's win this game. Let's keep our playoff hopes alive because they very well can still make the playoffs. Do have to play Bama next week. At this moment in time, I don't think it's that hard to beat them. And Auburn, it's just like, can we fix our offense
Something.
by
Yeah.
any means? It is
Anything.
just something. Their defense is doing good things out there, but they can only do so much. You need your offense to put up points on the board. You need them to succeed in any way, and it's just not working. But yeah, both of these teams right now are just like playing like my fantasy football team. It's like a lot of potential, but I'm not winning. I'm not gonna win this week either.
And it's almost like all of these other teams are checked out, which is interesting to me, especially now that there is that 12-team playoff. It really expands for truly anything to happen. I mean, one loss, two loss teams we might see get into that top 12.
No,
So
at
it's,
this rate, we definitely will.
yeah, it's
Maybe even a 3 loss.
yeah, I mean, it's interesting to me that a lot of these teams really just don't have any urgency in these ball games. I mean, there's
I
still a lot to play for.
It's just like it seems like some of these teams are completely checked out, and I don't know if it is because of these NIL deals. You see another kid redshirting mid-season every other day.
Yep.
Um, it's I don't know if I think this is might be the new culture of college football. It's why Saban left. He didn't want to do it anymore. He didn't like the outlook on where things were going, and nobody has this like undefeatable team anymore. You can be
No,
defeated every any given week. You can't be like, I'm Alabama, I'm gonna beat you because you're South Carolina. No, it's gonna be hard. You can't go in there and say, well, this is gonna be a cakewalk. It's not. It's
no,
not.
there's still not that one elite team right now.
We thought Texas was it.
No,
Obviously, we're
we did.
wrong.
We did. Obviously, we were wrong. I mean, we obviously, talked about them not playing anyone, difficult up to this point. This was definitely going to be the biggest test for them, especially in a, big SEC game. I mean, this is playoff caliber games, and this is why you go to these programs to play in games like this, which both teams will learn from that game. It's kind of like, first game of the season when Clemson played Georgia. I mean, you're going to learn, you're going to be exposed in ways that you probably wouldn't or haven't been exposed to in weeks prior, which is a good thing moving forward for these two teams. Even though someone did have to lose to be able to expose those weaknesses, but going forward, they should come out a better team going forward.
Like you said, with all of these teams, you learn from every single game. It's just which teams can actually implement those changes that they need to. Like Bama, I don't see them really implementing anything. I get it. The defense kind of woke up, but Tennessee's offense was giving you everything. It was just like you need to see some spark. And I think if Texas and Georgia played again, just based on last night, it was like, oh, I don't even know. I think Georgia would beat them again, quite frankly. I think their defense had them rattled. I think their defense had them figured out. And there's only so much you can change about your offensive scheme mid-season because it's what's working for you.
Yep.
So I don't know. It's a wild, wild year in the SEC.
Wild. It definitely is. And talk about wild. Let's move to South Carolina at Oklahoma. This was the first time these two programs have ever met before, but Shane Beamer was on staff with Oklahoma as the assistant coach of Lincoln Riley before he was hired as the Gamecocks head coach. The buzz around this program all week was to win the turnover battle. And boy, did they do that this weekend. What a defensive huge win for the Gamecocks.
Yeah, I think they were angry after last week. I don't think Oklahoma was angry enough. I mean, it was just like
No.
they were seconds away from beating this Alabama team last week. And then they come into this game and they absolutely dominated Oklahoma. They were able to get stuff done on the offense, which is not something we've seen before, or we have a little bit, but not much. And it is kind of interesting that they were able to do that to Kentucky, and which is a very strong defensive team, and they're able to do that to OU, but they can't do it to a team like Alabama.
Yep.
So I don't know what's going on. And you have the quarterback carousel again for OU. I mean, Michael Hawkins Jr. started, and after two interceptions and a fumble, Jackson Arnold took over. So again, you don't have stability in
Mm-mm.
Oklahoma that you desperately need. So this is not the season they were hoping for coming into the SEC by any means, but way to go, Gamecocks. You guys
Way to
killed
go.
it.
They have, a tough-ish road ahead. They had, one of the most difficult schedules this year in the SEC. But moving forward, I mean, this team could easily win 8 games for sure. Um, one of those losses might be to a Vandy, might be to A&M, hopefully a Clemson. You know, that'll be another rivalry game. But Sellers had a solid day. He completed almost 70% of his passes for 175 yards and a touchdown. But no one really cares about that. Everyone just cares that he did not turn the ball over. That was a big
Absolutely.
win today, yesterday for Sellers for the Gamecocks. I picked the Gamecocks to roll in there and win. They got it done. Excited to kind of see what they do moving forward. Now they have this new, confidence chip on their shoulders since it has been, the last 2 weeks L's for their program. But going forward, I think they'll play well. I think they'll finish strong.
Yeah, I do too. I think they've I think they know what winning feels like and they know how to win now, which is honestly just protect the ball with them because I think they have a very solid team. And then you look at OU, they have such a tough SEC schedule ahead of them. They have their bowl eligibility hanging in the balance now, too. I don't know if they're going to be able to get that done. Both of these teams right now are 4-3. I do think South Carolina could potentially win out. I think they found a nice rhythm, a nice
Yeah.
groove. And I'm really excited to see where they go.
Yeah, they were right on the cusp, what we keep talking about. It's just
Yep.
they're so close. They just have to work to get over that hump. And maybe this game yesterday is the game that gets them over that hump, gets them to where they want to be as a program
Yeah.
as a whole. So we will see moving forward. And I'm sure it's going to be another crazy week this upcoming week. And then going into November, it's always the November to remember. The air is going to get a little thinner. It's going to be wild, wild west. But we are ready. And so, guys, thank you so much for watching. Thanks so much for tuning in week and week out with us. If you have not already, be sure to like and subscribe. Follow us on all social media. We're on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and we look forward to talking sports next week with you.